Genesis chapter 41. After a lapse of 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile, when up out of the Nile came 7 cows, fine looking and fat. They grazed in the weed grass. Behind them 7 other cows, poor looking and gaunt, came up out of the Nile, and standing on the bank of the Nile beside the other. The poor looking cows devoured the 7 fine looking, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had another dream. He saw 7 ears of grain, fat and healthy, growing on a single stake. Behind them spotted 7 ears of grain, thin and scrolled by the east wind. And then the thin ears swallowed up the 7 fat, healthy ears. Then Pharaoh woke up. It was a dream. The next morning his mind was agitated. So Pharaoh had all the magi's and sages of Egypt summoned, and recounted his dream to them, but there was no one to interpret it for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Now I remember my negligence. Once when Pharaoh was angry with me, with his servant, he put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the chief steward. Later we both had a dream on the same night, and each of the dreams had its own meaning. There was a Hebrew young with us, a slave of the chief steward. When we told him our dream, he interpreted them for us and explained for each of us the meaning of his dream. Things turned out just as he had told us. I was restored to my post, but the other man was impaled. Pharaoh therefore had Joseph summoned, and they hurried brought him from the dungeons. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh then said to Joseph, "I had a dream, but there was no one to interpret it. But I hear it said of you, if he hears a dream, he can interpret it." "It is not I," Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "but God who will respond for the well-being of Pharaoh." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when up from the Nile came 7 cows, fat and well-formed. They grazed in the reed grass. Behind them came 7 other cows, scarcely most ill-formed and gaunt. Never have I seen such bad semen as these in all the land of Egypt. The bad cows devoured the first 7 fat cows, but then they had consumed them. No one could tell that they had done so, because they looked so as bad as before. Then I woke up. In another dream I saw 7 ears of grain, full and healthy, growing on a single stalk. Behind them sprouted 7 ears of grain, starved and thin and scolded by the east wind, and the 7 thin ears swallowed up the 7 healthy ears. I have spoken to the magicians, but there is no one to explain it to me." Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Pharaoh's dreams have the same meaning. God has made known to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears are 7 years. the same in each dream. The 7 thin, bad cows that came up after them, and the 7 as are the 7 thin ears thrown by the east wind. They are the same years of famine. Things are just as I told Pharaoh. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are now coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will rise up after them, when all the abundance will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. When the famine has exhausted the land, no trace of the abundance will be found in the land because of the famine that follow it, for it will be very scarce. That Pharaoh had the same dream twice means that the matter has been confirmed by God, and that God will soon bring it about. Therefore, let Pharaoh seek out a decent and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh act and appoint overseers for the land to organize it during the 7 years abundance. They shall collect all the food of those coming good years, gathering the grain under Pharaoh's authority for food in the cities, and they shall guard it. This food will serve as a reserve for the country against the 7 years of famine that will occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish in the famine. This advice pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. Could we find another like you? Pharaoh asked his servants, a man so indoors with the Spirit of God. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one as deserving and wise as you are. You shall be in charge of my household, and all the people will obey your command. Only in response to the throne will I overtake you. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, look, I put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. While that Pharaoh took off his signet ring and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He then had him ride in his second chariot, and they shouted Abric before him. Thus was Joseph installed over the whole land of Egypt. I am Pharaoh, he told Joseph, but without your appointed approval, no one shall lift hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh also bestowed the name of Sepharnath on Joseph, and he gave him in marriage Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar's prince of Heliopolis. And Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the servants of the Pharaoh, king of Egypt. After Joseph left Pharaoh, he went throughout the land of Egypt. During the 7 years of plenty, when the land produced abundant crops, he collected all the food of those years of plenty that the land of Egypt was enjoying and stored it in the cities, placing in each city the crops of the fields around it. Joseph collected grain like the sands of the sea, so much that at last he stopped measuring it, for it was beyond measure. Before the famine years set in, Joseph became the father of two sons, born to him by Ashnon, daughter of Potipharah, prince of Haliphonus. Joseph's named his firstborn Manasseh, meaning God has made me forget entirely my troubles and my father's house. And the second he named Ephraim, meaning God has made me fruitful in the land of my affections. When the 7 years of abundance enjoyed by the land of Egypt came to an end, the 7 years of famine set in, just as Joseph had said. Although there was famine in all the other countries, food was available throughout the land of Egypt. When all the land of Egypt became hungry and the people cried to Pharaoh for food, Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." When the famine had spread throughout the land, Joseph opened all the cities that had grain and rationed it to the Egyptians, since the famine had grasped the land of Egypt. Indeed, the whole world came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, and for famine had grasped the whole world. End of chapter 41.